At this moment, we genuinely do not observe such a willingness. No? By the second year, when the situation had already reached its breaking point, they are now, in essence, refusing to conclude this conflict through peaceful means. But still, you know, we do perceive and sense, and we are fully aware of certain signals, pause coming even from the Kiev regime, pause indicating their readiness to engage in some form of dialogue. The only thing I wish to state is that we have always spoken about this. We are ready and willing to bring this conflict to an end through peaceful means based on those very principles which I personally laid out in June of last year at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, and provided the root causes that led to this crisis are eliminated.
Russia carried out a deadly overnight missile assault on Ukraine's southern Odesa region on December 19th, striking port infrastructure and killing at least 7 people while injuring 15 others, according to Regional Governor Ole Keeper. He said Russian ballistic missiles massively attacked a port facility late in the evening, triggering fires among parked cargo trucks and causing extensive damage. Emergency crews rushed to the site, but their work was repeatedly interrupted by ongoing air raid sirens as the threat of further strikes persisted. Ukraine's Air Force had earlier issued a warning about a ballistic missile threat at around 9 p.m. local time, shortly before explosions were reported across Odesa Oblast. The region's ports have been frequent targets of Russian attacks, given their critical role in Ukraine's trade and logistics. Recent assaults have already caused prolonged power outages and disrupted water supplies for residents. Just a night earlier, Russian drones hit transport infrastructure in the same region, damaging a bridge on the M15 Odesa-Reni highway. The strike forced neighboring Moldova to temporarily close nearby border checkpoints, underscoring the cross-border impact of the attacks. Governor Kuiper described the sustained bombardment as relentless, but said authorities were working to protect civilians and keep key transport routes functioning. He previously characterized a December 13th assault as one of the largest overnight attacks on the region since Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Ukrainian officials say Russia continues to deliberately target civilian energy, transport, and utility infrastructure as part of its broader military campaign. The Odesa strike came just hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin held his annual televised direct line question and answer marathon, an event lasting more than 4 hours and broadcast nationwide. During the program, Putin claimed Russia had no intention of launching further wars beyond Ukraine, provided Moscow's interests were respected.
In the new security strategy, the national security strategy of NATO, Russia is not designated as an enemy.
As our objective. And the NATO Secretary General is preparing for a war with us.
What on earth is this? Do you even know how to read? How can you claim NATO is aiming for war with Russia if NATO's leading nation doesn't consider us an adversary or an enemy? European political elites backed the Democratic Party, Ms. Harris, in the US presidential election. They did this quite openly, not to say brazenly. And once they accused Trump of Russia meddling in the elections,
absolutely nothing was ever proven to be true. Every single inquiry and investigation in Congress yielded 0 results. There was no evidence of any cooperation nor any Russian interference. But the political elites of Europe did intervene, and they did so very directly.
It seems to me they're still counting on the fact that after the US midterm congressional elections next fall, the political landscape will shift somewhat, and their traditional allies will emerge, enabling them to exert greater pressure on President Trump.
That is precisely why they are conducting themselves in this particular manner, in anticipation of the impending changes within the political landscape of the United States in the run-up to the crucial congressional elections.
Threats we are determined to destroy.
And everyone must understand this and truly grasp the full implications of their actions, that actions of this particular nature will inevitably lead to an escalation of the conflict, one that has been unseen until this very moment, and will elevate it to a completely different level, expanding it into a full-scale armed confrontation.
The fundamental law of our country, and let's say when certain measures are being adopted, the utilitarian goal is actually to increase insurance contributions. This will not ultimately lead to the expected result, nor will it disrupt any supplies, but only create additional threats. A response from our side will certainly follow.
Despite occasional critical messages appearing on screens, complaints about internet outages, water quality, and rising prices, Putin used the forum to project confidence about Russia's economy and war effort. He acknowledged inflationary pressures and announced a value-added tax increase from 20% to 22% starting January 1st, even as Russia's central bank said it was cutting interest rates to 16%.
At this moment, we genuinely do not observe such a willingness. By the second year, when the situation had already reached its breaking point, they are now, in essence, refusing to conclude this conflict through peaceful means.
But still, we do, in fact, see and feel, and we are certainly aware of certain signals, including those emanating from the Kyiv regime, suggesting that they are prepared to engage in some form of dialogue. The only thing I wish to state is that we have always spoken about this. We are ready and willing to bring this conflict to an end through peaceful means, based on those very principles which I personally laid out in June of last year at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, and provided the root causes that led to this crisis are eliminated.
Ukrainian officials, meanwhile, reported new actions against Russia's so-called shadow fleet, saying they had struck an oil tanker in the Mediterranean, a move Putin dismissed as ineffective. As missiles fell on Odesa, Ukrainian authorities said the timing highlighted the gap between Moscow's rhetoric and its actions. While Putin spoke of peace and respect on television, Russia's strikes continued to exact a deadly toll on Ukrainian civilians, reinforcing Kyiv's view that Moscow remains committed to pursuing its objectives through force.